Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and install VS Code now. So I'm going to use VS Code. You can use tons of other editors. So I'm going to type in VS Code and Unity to search. I just like this link. It tells you basically just how to kind of walk things through. So the first thing is you need the .NET Core SDK. I already have this installed on my machine, but let's open it up. And then we want to download Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to go download Visual Studio Code. There's two different versions. There's Visual Studio Community and Visual Studio Code. So I like Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to do a system installer. You can install it by user. You can do 32-bit. I mean, there's so many different install options. So I'm going to do the system installer for 64-bit for Windows 10. Okay, that starts downloading my VS Code. For .NET, what you want is to build apps. So you want the .NET Core SDK. I would also get the .NET Framework. Okay, so this is for, again, for building apps. So putting this on your machine is, I would say, the most useful feature you will get out of it is that Unity and your IDE can talk to each other, and so you get autocomplete and whether error messages are there, because this isn't like C# native stuff. This is Unity commands, so it just lets Unity and your IDE talk to each other when you're writing code. So I would put both of those on, the .NET Core and the .NET Framework, especially the .NET Framework Dev Pack. That's the one that if you don't have, I already have it, so I can cancel that download. But if you don't have that installed, they can't communicate clearly. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and install VS Code. Yep, let's install it. Okay, whoops, let's go back there. Yep, I accept. This is a great folder for it right there. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. I do want to know, let's not. Sure, let's add open with code because I do like VS Code. Yeah, let's make it an editor too. We definitely want to add it to the path. So I'll click all of those. This sounds great. Okay, let's click next, next. It's going to do the whole install. I would pause it, but it looks like it's going super fast. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Unity, as this is about finishing, unless we need to restart. You know what? Let's just go ahead and finish. Oh, I meant to click not load it. Oh well, that's okay. So let's go ahead and close this. Okay, I'm going to go to Unity Hub. I'm going to open a project here. Okay, I've got this one. I can look at all my amazing cloud projects, but here's the one from the last video, which is basically blank. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to set up with VS Code. The first being I want to tell Unity that's what to open my C# scripts with. And the second is I want to add an extension or two to VS Code so that it can handle C# well and even Unity, okay? So I'll wait 1 second while this finishes opening. I'll pause it. Wow, that literally was like 1 second. Paused and unpaused. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go to Edit, and I want to go to Preferences and External Tools. And right here, I want to select an external script editor. So I want to go to Browse. Okay, now I put it in Program Files, so I'm going to go to C, Program Files. I'm going to go down. Shoot, was it under V or M? I don't see it under V, so I think it's under Microsoft. There we go. Microsoft VS Code. Okay, so here is the VS Code itself. However, I find that Unity communicates much better with it if you go to bin, which is empty, and then you switch from looking at all from exes only to all files, and then you do the Windows command script. That fully loads VS Code with all of the bells and whistles set in that we want. So I'm going to do that. Now down here, my assets area, my project window, I'm going to create a new folder for all of my scripts. And I'm going to create a script for my alien, okay? So I'm just going to right click down here and create a new C# script. I'm going to call it alien controller, okay? Now I just clicked enter, so it created the file. Now I'm going to double click on this to open, and if all goes well, it opens inside VS Code. And so this is what it looks like. One way that I can tell whether this works or not is down here. This little OmniSharp server will start running, and then these two will gray out because it will say, oh, you're not using either of these yet. However, right now it hasn't connected to Unity fully. Okay, so two things I want to do is I want to go to extensions here, and I would install some extensions. Now, I actually have VS Code installed in the past, and so when I uninstalled it just for this video, a lot of the plugins stayed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload my C#. Okay, so C# is now installed, so VS Code is up and running to use V# with all the bells and whistles, and it's got all these. Okay, great. So hopefully now, as this tries to run the OmniSharp server and connect with Unity, it works. And if not, we can debug that, okay? Okay, sorry, cut out for a second there. But yeah, so it's up and running now. So I can tell because these are grayed out that everything is up and running. As we go through the year, I'll tell you a couple settings I like to do. So I like to go to File, Preferences, Settings, and I like to turn Code Lens on and off. And I like to, so that's off. And then I like to turn off, oh, what's the other one? Shoot, as the year comes up, I'll remind you the other one. But there's a few settings I like to change, so that one's definitely one that annoys me. But you could change the settings to tweak it however you want. Collections and collections generic. The most common things we use those for are obviously collections, so things like list arrays, array lists, things like that. The other one is when we use coroutines, which are like a separate a separate thread. So when you're multitasking, you're like, say you want to spawn an enemy every 1 second and you don't want to manually do it yourself. Inside here with timers inefficiently, you can say, hey, Unity, I want you to every 10 seconds execute this command. Or it could be like generate a random number, wait that long, then do something. And just to go over the basics of this scripting, the start runs once when a game object is created, instantiated, or activated for the first time. If you deactivate and then reactivate, start will not run again. So it's just the first time that an object is created and activated, whereas update runs every single frame. So this is a variable frame rate. So if you want to have this constant over frame rate, you use time.delta time, and that tells you how much time has passed since the last frame. And so often you'll move something by like speed times time.delta time, and that'll keep, so no matter the frame rate, it'll say, oh, a lot of time passed, so move a far distance, and oh, a little time passed, so only move a little distance. But that will let you keep like trajectories and stuff straight. And then two other really common ones are void fixed update. So that one we use for physics. So that happens about every 0.2 seconds, so 5 times a second, but it's meant to be fixed. Now, it's not perfect. It's off by fractions of a second, but pretty regularly, it's at 0.2 seconds, regardless of whether the frame rate's slowing down or speeding up. So we use this for physics, okay? So like, add a force, things like that. And then up here in update, we use this for sensing. Okay, so you absolutely want to like sense a button input from a user at all times. So something like if input dot get mouse button, let's do mouse button down. So this is if they just clicked the mouse during this frame, or just get mouse button. Are they holding the mouse button down, true or false? So that's an example of a sensing that you do in there. Start happens once, but before that, we actually have a void awake. And there's times we want to use that because that happens immediately when the object's created before start. So in order, they're called. And then one last one, sometimes when we're dealing with a camera especially, or just lots of stuff, there's a late update. So what that does, it says after the update and the fixed update. So after everything's done running, before we render the screen, is there any last thing you want to do? So late update says after everything else, I want to do one last calculation. So move everything and then smoothly interpolate where the camera should be. And so those are the basic 5 that we'll use in Unity. And so far I haven't used this, but as soon as I use coroutine or something like that, I'll use it. All right, so that's an intro to code editing.